Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're really diving into something I think resonates with almost everyone learning English. Those tricky grammar mistakes.
Absolutely. But we've got some fascinating source material today that isn't just about rules. It's a story, really,
Yeah.
about someone named Emma.
Right, Emma. And her journey wasn't about, just avoiding errors, but actually using them, turning them into, well, stepping stones.
That's the core of it. So our mission today is to explore Emma's path. What were her specific grammar struggles? What strategies, often simple ones, did she find effective?
And crucially, how her experience gives you, our listeners, maybe a different way to look at your own mistakes. Less obstacle, more opportunity.
Exactly. A path towards growth, maybe even connection.
So the story starts where a lot of language anxiety peaks a job interview.
Yeah, high stakes. She's in a foreign country. She has the skills for the job. She's done her homework.
But the English grammar, that's the big fear factor. She's aware she makes those common mistakes, right? Like mixing up tenses.
Oh, yeah. Or dropping articles, saying things like, oh, she go to office yesterday. Things that just sound slightly off.
Or he have many works. Those errors that can make you feel really self-conscious.
It's that worry, isn't it? That your English isn't perfect and one slip-up could cost you, even if you're qualified otherwise. So relatable.
But then even before the interview, something small happens, almost by accident.
Right. A little aha moment. She's texting, types out, I will doing my best, and she just pauses, catches it.
And corrects it herself. To I will do my best.
Exactly. And that tiny fix, just noticing it on her phone, it felt significant, like a small win.
A little signal that maybe it wasn't about achieving perfection, but more about paying attention, being present with the language as she was using it.
Precisely. It shifted her mindset just slightly from my grammar is bad, which is passive, to I can spot this and fix it, which is active.
Even if it was just a tiny text message error.
Yeah, and that little seed of awareness, she kind of carried it into the interview.
Okay, so the interview itself, still nervous, obviously.
Of course. But maybe with a slightly different internal focus. And sure enough, mid-answer, she almost trips up.
What happened?
She starts to say something like, I'm excited to hear, but catches herself mid-flow.
Okay. And corrects it.
Yeah, corrects her right there to, I am excited to be here. A stumble, but she recovered immediately.
And how did that land with the interviewers? Because that's often the fear, right? That they'll notice the mistake.
Well, according to the source, it actually landed positively. One interviewer apparently mentioned it later, saying something like, it shows you're always learning.
Wow. So the self-correction wasn't a black mark. It was a sign of engagement, of learning mindset.
Exactly. Her success getting the job wasn't down to flawless grammar. It was partly that demonstration of being willing to learn, to adjust, even under pressure. That was seen as a plus.
That's a really powerful takeaway. It flips the script on mistakes. Don't hide them, maybe. Own the correction.
It seems so. And after landing the job, she didn't just forget the mistake she made. That initial curiosity, the feeling from the text message correction, it stuck with her.
So she didn't feel shame. She felt curious.
Kind of, yeah.
Huh.
She wanted to understand why these things were happening, which leads to her next big idea.
The famous notebook of mistakes.
That's the one. But it wasn't like a textbook. It was deeply personal. Her own error log.
So she'd write down actual things she said or wrote incorrectly?
Yes, things like, I will doing my best, or maybe she has a strong opinion. Real examples from her life. But here's the key part.
Go on.
She didn't just write the error. She wrote down why it was wrong in simple terms. For I will doing, she'd note, rule, will needs the base verb like do,
Ah, so she's diagnosing her own patterns.
Exactly. For she have, she'd write, rule. For he, she, it use has. She was building her own tailored grammar guide.
That's brilliant, because it's focused only on her specific issues.
And doing this revealed something important. She started seeing patterns. Many recurring mistakes weren't random. They were, well, echoes of her native language, Spanish. Direct translations that just don't work in English.
Like trying to fit Spanish structures into English sentences.
Precisely. And realizing that was apparently a huge relief. It wasn't that she was bad at grammar. It was a habit formed by her first language.
And habits. Well, they can be changed, right? With awareness and practice.
That was the insight. It wasn't some impossible barrier. It was a specific linguistic habit she could actually work on.
And this notebook thing, it wasn't just a one-off task.
No, it became a regular practice. The source says it even grew into something like a hobby. She started organizing it, creating sections.
The sections like...
You know, the usual suspects, articles A and the, prepositions in, on, tenses, subject-verb agreement.
all the classics that trip learners up.
Right. And she even added a funny mistakes section.
I love that. Why funny mistakes?
It brings lightness to it. Instead of feeling embarrassed by saying, I don't know, I did a picture instead of I drew a picture, she could note it down, understand the difference, and maybe even chuckle about it.
Yeah, it takes the sting out of it. Makes it memorable in a good way, not a shameful way.
Totally reframes the emotion.
Yeah.
And this personal project started to ripple outwards.
How so?
She began talking about her notebook and her approach with colleagues, some of whom were also non-native English speakers navigating the same challenges.
Sharing her strategies.
Yeah. And it just sort of happened. They formed a small, informal grammar group at work.
Seriously, like a little study group.
Pretty much. They'd meet up, maybe over lunch, share sentences they weren't sure about or mistakes they'd noticed themselves making. They'd figure things out together.
That turns grammar from this lonely struggle into something collaborative, supportive.
Absolutely. And apparently her manager noticed this positive dynamic. Made a comment like, that's the kind of team spirit we need.
Wow. So the very thing that caused her initial fear mistakes actually ended up building connection and teamwork.
It's a complete turnaround, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really cemented that core idea for her. Mistakes are not failures. They are bridges to better English. She was living it.
Okay, so she has this new mindset. She has her notebook. She has a support group. What's next? Putting it all into practice.
Exactly. Because knowing the rule in the notebook is one thing.
Using it correctly when you're actually speaking or writing, that's the real challenge.
Right. So practice and patience became the next focus. She started carrying that notebook everywhere, ready to jot down new errors or review old ones.
And how did she practice?
She started simple but smart. The source mentions her just saying sentences aloud. Basic ones. I am happy. They are ready.
Just saying them. Why?
She found that hearing the correct firms helped connect the rule in her head to the actual sound and rhythm of English. It started to feel more natural.
Like training her ear as well as her brain?
Yes, building that intuitive sense of what sounds right. And this led her to create a kind of personal rule, a mantra for speaking.
What was it?
Speak slowly. Think clearly. Fix mistakes as they come.
Simple but powerful. Speak slowly. That gives you processing time.
Exactly. Time to access the rule you learned, not just react impulsively or translate directly. Think clearly. Focus on the message. Fix mistakes.
Yeah.
That active correction step again.
And does she apply this in real situations, like at work?
Yes. The source gives examples from meetings. She might start to say, I think we should focus.
Then catch yourself.
And correct it.
Calmly, yeah.
I think we should focus on social media more. No big drama, just a quick on-the-spot correction.
And people reacted okay to that.
Positively, it seems. It showed she was being careful, aiming for clarity. It wasn't embarrassing. It actually reinforced the correct pattern for her and showed her commitment. Built confidence way more than just wishing she hadn't made the mistake later.
Makes sense. Did she use other practice methods too?
Oh, yeah, she really diversified.
Yeah.
Started reading more widely in English novels, newspapers. Jane Austen even gets a mention.
Jane Austen for grammar practice. Okay.
Well, not just reading passively. If a sentence structure confused her, she'd copy it down, maybe look up the grammar behind it, try writing her own sentences using that structure. Active engagement.
So, mining the reading material for grammar lessons. Smart.
Definitely. Plus, other things like watching English TV shows with subtitles, great for hearing grammar in natural conversation, and writing daily journal entries in English.
Turning reflection into practice.
Exactly. And all this consistent effort really hammered home the importance of patience.
Yes, the P word. Language learning isn't quick.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. She realized there'd always be more to learn, always new mistakes to make. But with the right approach, each one was just another lesson waiting.
So, from all this experience, the notebook, the group, the practice, she kind of boiled it down, right, into some key strategies.
Yes, 5 core strategies emerged that really encapsulate her approach. Things anyone could potentially adapt.
Okay, let's lay them out. What's strategy number 1?
Listen carefully. Really tune your ear to how fluent speakers naturally use the language. Notice patterns in subject-verb agreement, tense usage. Hearing "he doesn't like coffee" often enough makes "he don't like coffee" start to sound wrong.
Using your ear as a grammar guide. Okay, number 2.
Slow down when speaking. This ties back to her mantra. Pause. Think. Speak. It buys your brain that crucial second to choose the right structure, rather than defaulting to old habits or rushing into errors.
Takes a bit of nerve to slow down sometimes, but I see the logic. 3rd.
Correct yourself.
Yeah.
Immediately. And again, not harshly, but when you catch an error, like starting to say "she don't," actively switch it to "she doesn't," right then and there. It reinforces the correct pathway in your brain.
Shows you're actively learning. Okay, 4th strategy.
Use visual aids. Grammar can be abstract. So things like drawing simple charts for verb tenses, using different colored highlighters for articles, or mapping out prepositions can make the concepts more concrete, easier to grasp and remember.
Making it visible. I like that. And number 5.
Practice with real sentences. The ultimate goal is communication, right? So don't just practice grammar rules in isolation. Apply them in real contexts. Writing emails, chatting with friends, telling a short story, your journal. Connect the grammar to its purpose.
Makes it meaningful. So, these 5. Listen, slow down, correct, visualize, practice real. Simple, but sounds effective.
Very. They boosted her confidence immensely, and sharing them helped her grammar group too. It all came back to that idea. Fixing grammar isn't about perfection. It's about being brave, patient, and, well, smart about how you learn.
And this growing confidence led to a bigger challenge, didn't it? The big presentation.
Yeah, a significant opportunity at work. A real test.
Did she use her strategies to prepare?
Absolutely. She didn't just wing it. She wrote the presentation carefully, read it aloud over and over, practiced catching and correcting small errors, even recorded herself.
Recording herself. That's brave.
It helps you catch things you miss in the moment. And she got feedback from her grammar group buddies, too. It was full court press using her whole system.
And how did the actual presentation go?
Really well, according to the source. She deliberately kept her pace slow, following her own rule. She made 1 or 2 minor slips, but corrected them calmly, without fluster. Poise under pressure.
And the reaction?
Applause, positive feedback.
Sure.
Her manager even commented on how much her English had improved. It was validation that her approach, courage, practice, self-belief really worked.
That must have been incredibly motivating.
It's so motivating that it sparked something else, a desire to share her journey more widely.
Beyond her work colleagues.
Yeah. She started volunteering at a community center, teaching English learners. She showed her own story, her struggles, her strategies.
That's wonderful, connecting with others who were in the same boat she used to be in.
Exactly. She understood their fear. The source mentions one student, Maria, who felt inspired just hearing Emma's story, feeling brave enough to try.
And teaching probably helped Emma too, right? Solidified her own knowledge.
Absolutely. Explaining a concept to someone else forces you to understand it deeply. It reinforces your own learning.
It really brings home that message about embracing mistakes. They're not just problems, they're signposts pointing the way.
And that confidence comes from patience, being kind to yourself, staying open. The source even tells a small anecdote about a friend gently correcting her later on, something like, "I have went." And Emma just took it easily, saying, "Oh, right, still learning." No defensiveness.
Because language learning is ongoing. An adventure.
Which led her, naturally, to the next step in that adventure, becoming a formal teacher. She enrolled in a tougher course teaching English as a foreign language.
Whoa, so diving into the really technical side of grammar.
Yep. Past perfect, continuous, zero conditional. All that fun stuff. It was challenging, but her own experience gave her a unique perspective. She knew where learners typically struggled because she'd been there.
So she could teach it differently.
She tried to. She built lesson plans based on her own journey, using storytelling, real examples, and yes, bringing in those funny mistakes for humor and connection, like tackling subject-verb agreement by sharing her own past errors.
Teaching from experience, not just a textbook.
Exactly. The source describes her first official class. Not flawless, but authentic.
Yeah.
She apparently started by saying something like, "I know how it feels, that fear. We're going to turn that fear into confidence together."
Setting the tone right away,
Yes.
building trust.
Yeah. But she wanted to reach even more people.
So, the internet.
The internet. She started a blog and a YouTube channel called Mistakes Made Me Fluent.
Great title. And what was her approach there?
Authenticity was key. She'd make videos, and if she stumbled over a word or made a small grammar error while speaking naturally, she'd often leave it in.
Really? Not edit it out.
No, she'd leave it, then point it out and explain the correction, like saying, "He, go to work." Then pausing, "Oops, goes to work, remember that's for he shite." Just like she did for herself with the notebook.
Wow, that's vulnerable and powerful.
Hugely. The response was amazing. Learners worldwide felt seen, understood, less ashamed of their own errors. It fostered this community where mistakes weren't hidden, but highlighted as learning moments.
That message you mentioned from Brazil.
Yeah, a viewer writing something like, "I almost gave up. Your story saved me. Now I speak with confidence." That really sums up the impact. It went beyond just grammar tips.
It became about connection, courage, not giving up.
Exactly. That's the ultimate lesson from Emma's journey, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Fixing grammar is part of it, sure, but it's wrapped up in these much bigger human qualities. Courage, compassion for yourself and others, and just persistence.
What a transformation from that initial interview fear to inspiring a global community.
It shows that every mistake, viewed the right way, really is a step forward. Progress is possible, and the journey, well, it continues.
So for everyone listening, maybe take a second now to think about your own English journey. Where do you feel stuck? Is there a particular mistake that keeps tripping you up?
And consider Emma's perspective. If that mistake isn't a failure, but a teacher trying to tell you something, What is it teaching you? What one specific mistake could you choose to embrace and learn from starting today? How might tackling it with curiosity, maybe even noting it down like Emma did, shift your relationship with learning English?